Thank you very much, Yuk. It's fascinating. I have a quick question, because as you know, I work on Simondon, so I would like to know, it's more a question if you do, and how do you distinguish rhythm and phase, and how...
Rhythm and?
Phase.
Phase?
Phase. PH.
Phase. Okay. Yeah.
And how this distinction could actually impact the notion of process as you conclude with Whitehead. It seems that with this dimension of the matter of speed no longer being a question of time, it anchors the question of process through a multiplicity of reasons, and how the distinction between phase and rhythm could actually help us understand, or better understand maybe processes of dynamics.
Yeah. This is a very good question. That was a book. Very complicated, but I would say that, like, according to my reading of Simondon, phase, that apparent that he really took this term from quantum mechanics. So there's, for example, a phase change when in certain phase change that you cannot identify the speed and the location of a particle, then there is always kind of ambiguity in this process of transformation. But it is also a kind of when certain intensity is reached, then you enter another phase. So the question of phase is the question of intensity. For me, but then of course the intensity also has to do with rhythm, because it's a rhythm. When I said resonance, it's a resonance towards an intensity, resonance to an intensity that when certain energy level, or for example, if we adopt the terms of quantum mechanics, that when certain threshold is reached, then it goes from one phase to another. And for me the question is, like, how can we reintroduce rhythm and into the technical program in different order of magnitude. Yeah, what I mean, order magnitude. For example, we can think about this orientation in terms of culture, geography, that as Bernard has laid down and lay out in techniques and time in the second chapter. We can also look into it in terms of individual software or programs, for example, a platform, like what, because last year we have been discussing the question of what is complicity, not explicit, not implicit, but complicit. Complicit is a question, exactly for me, the question of rhythm as attention, because it's not... it's neither implicit that something applies something else, nor explicit that something equal to something else, but there is always a struggle, a negotiation happening at this. Yeah. So the question of rhythm for me is a principle or something that we have to reintroduce into techniques today in all levels of development.
I'll try to link some of your beautiful quotations.
Yeah.
I'm starting with Heidegger and rhythm that bestows the quiet.
Yeah.
That resonates for me
Yeah.
with another image that you didn't quote, but the image of the Chinese jar in the Four Quartets by T.S.C. Eliot. And this image is an image of an immovable movement.
Yeah.
It seems to me that this kind of contradiction has more to do with Christian thought than with Greek thought.
Yeah.
And the question that Heidegger was asking, what do the Greek think of rhythm, probably has to be approached in a different way. I'm using another of your quotations, Valérie, about the definition of rhythm and his dissatisfaction. I found this is very meaningful because if we come back to the Greeks, I mean, classical Greeks, rhythm was incredibly important. The word musique was defining for them the very content of the traditional idea, the traditional education. And musique was at the same time music, dance, poetry, and rhythm, of course. So I wonder if the rhythm in the Greek sense is really an alternative to definition, a different way of relating, an alternative of the immediate relation that definition gives us. And if you read through our experience of contemporary thought, say Deleuze and Derrida, their relation to repetition, we can understand the Greek rhythm also as a relation that is an iteration that is at the same time altering. Could we think to rhythm in this way as an alternative way of constructing relation, alternative to the conceptual order or definitions?
Well, I have written an article mainly on the Heidegger and the ancient Greek on the question of rhythm, but we cannot explain here. But I quickly will say that if you look at what the definition, of course, like for example, Emil Benveniste has tried to argue, the linguist, he has tried to argue that the definition of rhythm in ancient Greek has been wrongly taken for a long time, because the common definition was kind of referring to something floating on water, and then it's shifted like this. But he said, okay, no, rhythm has so much to do with form. Like but it's not the form in terms of the mouth or the adults. And there is a kind of I developed hence a reading of what I call the individuation of rhythm. The individuation rhythm, that how rhythm emerge into form, and this kind of form is also kind of, when a form arises, it is also an entrance into a phase. Yes, I mean, so then rhythm always produce certain form, that this form is kind of metastable, allow it to enter another form. So this is my reading of that of his take on and also on Mechanic's book that has a very wonderful critique on this. But there is a point that about the ancient Greek, and it's complicated, as I want to show here, but which wasn't so clear because it was not much time. It's a relation between technique and logos. And because in that reading of, if we refer to the ancient reading of rhythm, then of course there is not much technique in these logos as rhythm. That is also kind of what I'm trying to bring these logos into technique. You see what I mean? So how can this be understood? How can this be thought in our time? How to be this? And then this coming of quietness, of course, this quietness is kind of this quietness, and that's the quote of Heidegger of passing into quietness, and the last quote of Bernard, that if you become silent, then you start talking, is the kind of some logos or some logic there that worth thinking about technical development or the technical program.
As usual. Thank you very much first. It's a very interesting conference. And probably I will answer some of your questions in my own communication. Right. Now, as you could see, we are in dialogue, YUK and myself, for a long time now. And it's impressive for me to see that our discussion in Leufana concerning the shadow sublime, etc., is continuing now here. And I just wanted to point out one question I will address through Whitehead, which is the question of negentropy. And this is, I believe that there is a very important question that we can't find neither in Heidegger nor in Simondon, which is the question of negentropy. And I believe that for the cosmological question to come, because it is a question to come now, cosmology, the Whiteheadian question of cosmology is to come. I believe that we must articulate these questions between quantum mechanics and negentropy as a question of reason and what I called infinite speed. So thank you very much. It's not a question, it's just a remark for opening this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean that's like I will speak 20 seconds. Where I think it's I always have this question of the negentropy at mind, because actually we start talking about this. Maybe you have forgotten in 2009 in Paris that we already start talking about the question of negentropy, and that is also kind of for me that this negentropy has been discussed in organizational studies, in like how to put things into organization, and it is a question as when I respond to the question of Ricardo is also like how rhythm set a form to emerge, because a form is a kind of organization, but it cannot be. And how can we set this form to emerge at the same time remain metastable? That's all. And then we can go forth to introduce the question of cosmology again. So, thank you very much.